Alright, so I've seen a lot of you guys on the internet, specifically on a website called twitter.com, struggling with Pikmin 1 and 2 now that the new Switch ports have come out. And, instead of sitting on the sidelines like all those other guys and watching and laughing at you as you die a million times to the pretty obvious things that us veteran Pikmin players have gone through, I figured I'd share my wisdom of 20 plus years with this franchise to as many people as I can and release a small video going over some tips and tricks on how to best play through Pikmin 1. Now this video is going to purely and primarily cover tricks in Pikmin 1 specifically. Pikmin 1 is a very small game compared to Pikmin 2. You can beat it in under 3 hours pretty easily, especially if you've done it a lot before. There's a lot of replay value and, figuring out the best ways to do things, speed running the game, going through challenge mode, things like that. So, it kind of comes with the territory of if you've played the game before, you kind of can just go back and figure out how to do things better and better and better. But here I want to give you guys my tips that I've learned throughout playing this game annually pretty much for the last 20 years since it came out in the GameCube, and giving you that kind of wisdom that only comes with experience, So let's start off. So with this video, I do want to preface by saying I'm not going to make some sort of really baseline dumb video like use the red Pikmin in the fire and the blue Pikmin can swim in the water, the yellow Pikmin have big ears and can jump high. I'm not gonna do something stupid like that, that's all really basic tips and stuff that you kind of just learn by playing the game through Olimar's observations. I don't think that's necessary, but I will give you tips and tricks that kind of advance your playthrough of the game, give you knowledge of enemies and environments and things like that you might have not known about prior, because these are things that I wished I knew when I first played Pikmin 20 years ago or so. One thing I do want to add is I think this game is preferable to be controlled and played through with the traditional control scheme. I haven't played the game with the enhanced motion controls yet. I don't think I want to because I didn't like the motion controls in the Pikmin Wii port, which is arguably my least favorite port of Pikmin to this date now that we have an HD version of it on the Switch. But that's largely because the game's not built with motion controls in mind, right? Pikmin 3 is a fantastic game with motion controls because it's built with it in mind. Pikmin 1 was not built with motion controls in mind, so I suggest playing through the game with the traditional point and aim style controls with the control stick. I think it's a lot more intuitive. I think the game devs definitely had a focus of enhancing that aspect of the gameplay, and it's the kind of way the game was intended to be played. First thing I want to dive into with this is giving you the pretty candid tip of, don't be afraid to reset the game. I think a lot of people might feel a little bit of shame to do it, or maybe they might not even know that they can just reset the game. Clicking the minus button on your Switch Joy-Cons or on the controller and hitting continue from last save, it will reset the day for you. You can start from the beginning. It makes things so much simpler, especially if you've made a really dumb mistake and you realized you made a dumb mistake, right? There's no shame in restarting. Even people like me who have played this game dozens upon dozens of times, even I reset because something happens. Either it's stupid glitches and BS, or the game does something I don't expect to happen, and that always is something that you have to kind of take it to the chin and just realize, hey, I could do this over again. You don't feel like there's pride in continuing on when you lose 80 to 90 Pikmin in a row to something stupid, because that's something that you don't have to go through. It will just make the game longer for you, and you can learn from your mistakes and try things again or do things differently. So second of all, keep in mind that ship parts as items specifically will stay in locations if you move them from a day before. So don't be afraid to maybe half finish a task. Make sure you rounded up all your Pikmin in an area and then just end the day if you don't have a whole lot to do. Specifically, enemy bodies will not carry over. That's something that really only was introduced in Pikmin 3, specifically with boss corpses. But items, and I should say specifically collectibles, will stay in the place that you had dragged them previously from the day before. So say you leave a ship part maybe like, a good 30 seconds away from your base. Well, if you leave it there, you don't have to worry about it respawning back. You don't have to worry about the boss respawning back. I don't believe any bosses in this game respawn. I think certain enemies are on day spawners, but bosses themselves, I don't believe will respawn if you kill them. So that's something to keep in mind. Any items you do pick up will stay in the relative location that you leave them. That way you can strategically, work on something and you can half finish it and come back the next day and do it. Third tip, and this is a big one that, it seems a little obvious on the surface, but I don't see a lot of people utilizing it, is multitask. Find ways to utilize unused Pikmin throughout the day, and a lot of that kind of comes with territory of understanding the map and the layout and things you can and can't do. But specifically, like there are gates you can break down that are further from your map. A good example of this is right on the second day in the Forest of Hope. You can go all the way to the back with like a group of 20 or 30 red Pikmin and break down the gate that leads to the yellow Pikmin while you use the remainder of your crew to pick up the ship parts that are sitting around or to defeat some enemies and, get more Pikmin. These are all things you're able to do to multitask. You can send off 10 of them to work on a bridge. You can send 20 of them to break down that gate. And then while, everyone else is managing their own individual tasks, carrying corpses, killing enemies, you can easily just set aside some time to ensure that something that's going on a little further down there's progress being made on it. There's progress that's being made. You will never always need 100 Pikmin at your side at one specific moment. Some enemies, they require like 60 to 70 Pikmin or 50 to 40 Pikmin to like easily kill without you really feeling like you're going to lose anything. But more specifically, you can utilize a lot of those Pikmin that you don't really need, that are extra to do other things throughout the day, and that's a really big part in being able to beat Pikmin 1 in a timely fashion. Now the game gives you a lot of leeway, right? You can have a minimum of collecting one ship part a day. Usually the ship parts are all easy to get, but that's the kind of excitement and the fun of playing Pikmin, right? Is to figure out, okay, how fast can I beat this game and how many days can I beat this game? My record personally has been 10 days. I've seen people do as soon as like 8 or 9, and my most recent playthrough on the Switch now, I got it done in 13 days. I got all the parts in 13 days, which was pretty great for me. It took me about 2.5 hours, but all these things add up from multitasking, right? Next is best methods of combat. So this game has kind of changed a lot of the control schemes, and I swear maybe I'm crazy. I have to think about it more. I might release a video on the differences between this and the GameCube and Wii versions, but like I feel like this is much more than a facelift. Like they changed the code of the game drastically, because a lot of the big glitches that were in Pikmin 1 and the GameCube version just aren't here anymore. I'm not seeing Pikmin clip under enemy corpses. Wally Wogs are now Wally Hops, I should specifically say is what they're called. They don't have massively huge hitboxes on Pikmin anymore, which is actually relieving. And a lot of things seem to be on more consistent timers. But the biggest thing I've noticed is that they kind of changed the throw mechanic a little bit from Pikmin 1. So in Pikmin 1, your throws were on a little bit of a lag, and they were only really on a lag because your Pikmin tracking wasn't that good. I think a better way to put it is that they haven't changed the throws, they changed the Pikmin tracking. So like Pikmin would always be a certain distance away from Olimar, which would mean, their models would physically have to like warp toward him, which takes time to do, you know what I mean? Like, so you're hitting the A button and you're mashing the A button to grab Pikmin, and it maybe takes a little longer for your buttons to actually register than what you're actually pressing. So like you're mashing it and like you're throwing half the Pikmin in the time that you're mashing, like, the button. You're mashing 20 times, you're only throwing 10 Pikmin, I guess is the best way to put it. But with this, they changed the tracking so that it's kind of like the Pikmin are always by Olimar's side. When you played in the GameCube version, for example, a way you got around this was by swarming the C-stick around your captain, and making it so that all the Pikmin were directly in front of Olimar. That way you could just mash the A button as many times as possible, and you throw as many Pikmin as you were mashing the A button. Because they're all next to him, that means they don't have to spend the extra second or two warping to Olimar's character model. Pikmin 1 on the Switch, they changed that so that Olimar now always kind of has Pikmin by his side. You're mashing it, and when you mash the A button, it goes as fast as throwing a Pikmin does, which means you don't really have to use the C stick as often to reliably kill big enemies like Bulborbs or Bulbears, or anything like that. Swarming is still a very good feature, but now swarming is a really strong complement to mashing the A button, especially now that they've changed the mapping of swarming to holding down the top left trigger and then the camera control stick, which is different from just using the C stick. And a big change is that you no longer have any influence over the movement of your cursor while you're swarming, which is a massively good buff to damage in combat in this game. Because one of the big things that made swarming hard in the Wii version of Pikmin was that it was mapped to the down button on the Wii remote, and then you'd also have to mash with A, so like your hand would go crazy and you couldn't really get like a good grip on an enemy placement. You have to pretty much be directly underneath them in order to swarm and throw, and swarming was just really awkward in the Wii version. In this version now, swarming can also be used while you're mashing the A button. So what do I mean by this? So if you mash the A button and throw as many Pikmin as you want on an enemy, you can also swarm the group that you're not throwing underneath and behind the enemy. This makes killing Bulborbs so much easier. This makes killing like the Puffstool so much easier. It made me able to 3-cycle the Emperor Ballax, which is something I don't think I've ever done, which is crazy to me. Like, it's crazy how much of a buff combat got in this game, purely because the cursor is stood still. This is a little bit more of an advanced trick for you guys who are playing the game, but there are things that you can do in this to sequence break pretty frequently in Pikmin 1. Sequence breaking Pikmin 1 is not difficult. It's a pretty easy to break game, honestly, but one key example of that is there's the armored cannon beetle in the Forest of Hope. I got to it in, I think, day 2, either 2 or 3, purely by being able to throw yellow Pikmin with bomb rocks out of bounds, and then those yellow Pikmin would then throw bombs onto the fence that is submerged in the water, and you could call them back while they're kind of drowning, and it destroys it in 2 bomb rocks. And then from there, all you need to do is bring the rest of your Pikmin up onto the other side, walk Olimar around, and then you could just fight the armored cannon beetle right there, which is really something that's been around in like Pikmin speedrunning for a while now, stuff like that. Being able to sequence break the game to that level. It's just another thing in the Forest of Hope you're able to do as well. I'm kind of jumping the gun with this. Just to sequence break is to be able to throw your yellow Pikmin above the I guess the cardboard box that they have to drag along, and then using that to get to the burrowing Snagrets. That kind of sequence breaking isn't entirely a sequence break, but it makes it so that you can get to them within 2 to 3 days, which is phenomenal. You don't need blue Pikmin to pretty much finish the entire Forest of Hope, which is good. Next, I want to get into some bosses and enemies, specifically ones that I know give people a lot of trouble. We'll start off with the Wollywogs, everyone's favorite enemies. Sorry, I'll say Wally Hops. I know they changed it purely because the term wog is apparently like a slur in England. I didn't know that until I read it online. I looked it up. It's true. So it makes sense that they changed it to Wally Hops, but they're always going to be known as the slur in my heart because I hate those things so much. In any case, the Wally Hops specifically used to give people a lot of trouble because they'd hop up, they'd drag your Pikmin with them, and then they'd kind of crush and kill large amounts of Pikmin at a time, and it was very difficult to really manage how to beat them. Now, in this iteration, it seems like their nerf, their hitbox is not as big as it was before, but on top of that as well, they seem to be on a bit of a timer. So like I was really easily able to chuck like 5 or 10 Pikmin at them at one time, and then wait for them to hop up, and then the Pikmin get launched in a specific direction. They used to kind of go everywhere, but this time they go directly like in front of where Olimar is, or in front of the front-facing area of the Wally Hop, and then you could just toss more Pikmin on them and repeat for 2 or 3 times, and it's dead, and you don't have to worry about it, which is actually kind of crazy. Now that they've removed, and I know because I haven't experienced it a single time in the game, I know for a fact they removed enemy corpses being able to randomly crush Pikmin, and Pikmin getting clipped underneath the ground. You can be a lot more lax with how you throw Pikmin at enemies without worrying about losing them en masse, without losing a bunch of Pikmin at once. With a few key exceptions, we'll get into that one later. But specifically with the Wally Hops, it's very easy to just kill it in 2 to 3 cycles by just chucking Pikmin, watching it hop up, have it hop down, knock them off, chuck a few Pikmin, watch it hop up, hop down, chuck a few Pikmin. Makes it very simple. Bulborbs, as I mentioned before, and Bulbears as well, are very easy to kill by just, chucking a bunch of Pikmin at their back and swarming the rest that you're not throwing at their backside as well. That's something that's a tried and true method, is the chucking really quickly. Swarming has done well before. Now that you don't have to worry about enemy corpses crushing Pikmin underneath the world, it is actually pretty easy to do both without having to worry about any sort of consequence, but it's a very nice thing to think about anyway. Armored Cannon Beetle. Now, this is something that I've only experienced in this game, but you got to be careful about the angle of which you throw your Pikmin at. Do not stand directly underneath the Armored Cannon Beetle in this game. You got to stay a little bit further away from it, and don't be afraid of its big boulder like about to shoot out of its mouth when you chuck the Pikmin in the front hole. That big hole that opens up when he's about to inhale his rock or exhale his rock. You want to throw a Pikmin directly inside of that and then chuck them at his back. I'm able to one cycle pretty much every one of these things in the game, which is crazy to me. I was not able to do that in the GameCube version, which is just, I love that so much. But it's something you got to keep in mind. Don't be directly underneath it. You will lose a lot of Pikmin. I learned that one the hard way. The next enemy is the Beady Longlegs. Now, Beady Longlegs has always kind of been a little bit of a notorious enemy, especially in this game, because his foot hitboxes are really big and they're hard to kind of predict where he lands because the shadows don't really line up super well. And in this game, it's kind of not very different. I feel like his feet still have a really big range, and he also is really hard to predict where his foot's going to go. But at the same time, if you go into that fight with maybe 10 or 15 yellow Pikmin and you just keep throwing them for about maybe 5 minutes, I think you'll be able to kill him pretty easily without having very many casualties. It's not that difficult of a fight. You just have to keep in mind, don't bring a huge army. He thrives on being able to cover a lot of ground and a lot of surface, and having a lot of Pikmin makes it more and more likely for you to lose guys. You want to be conservative when throwing Pikmin at him and having Pikmin in the arena with him. 10 to 15 is a really good number because that 10 to 15 Pikmin will stay really close by to Olimar, and it will be very unlikely that they divert to any direction where they're going to be crushed by his feet. And then the final enemy I want to throw out there for you guys to be cautious with is the final boss of the game, the Emperor Ballax. This guy is still kind of a menace. I was able to 2-cycle him, which made me be able to do the final trial in 1 day, which I haven't done in ages, which is crazy to me. And it was really easy to do, I should add that too. But the thing about him is that he still has the capacity to kill an unlimited amount of Pikmin. The one thing you want to do to fight him is to go, before you wake him up in his arena, break down the gate behind him and make sure you get yellow Pikmin with bomb rocks. You want to stand outside of the arena with your group of Pikmin, wait for him to face you, jump in with your yellow Pikmin, throw one near his head, wait for him to open his mouth, and then the yellow Pikmin will throw the bomb rock at him, and then you can run up and swarm him and kill him. It seems a lot easier in this version of the game to have him eat the bomb rock from the yellow Pikmin. It seemed a little inconsistent before because sometimes he would already have opened his mouth and the yellow Pikmin would be dead. But in this game, it seemed very consistent, in this version of the game. Seems very consistent to do it the way it was intended, which is good. But yeah, you kind of want to be careful because he does this big jumping attack, and he is very quick to land back down. And when he lands, he can crush as many Pikmin as he wants. Like, I've seen him crush like 80 Pikmin at once, which is crazy. On top of that, too, his tongue, I don't know if there's a capacity for how much he can eat with his tongue at once, but he can eat a lot of Pikmin at once with his tongue. So you got to be careful with how many Pikmin he can kill in a single blow. It's something you need to kind of be cautious about, you know, something to be careful with. And then I kind of guess that's it for my tips and tricks with Pikmin 1. The main thing you want to be, you know, concerned with playing the game is being careful and not really taking the game, you know, super fast and quickly. There are always new ways to figure things out, and there are always ways to discover new ways to kind of, you know, play the game and to understand the mechanics. This is the most accessible version of Pikmin 1, easily by far. And there's a lot of things to jump into with it. So, I mean, I appreciate you guys for watching. If you want to see me talk about Pikmin 2 and give you tips and tricks on Pikmin 2, which is equally one of my favorite games of all time, I have a ton of knowledge of that game as well. Just leave a comment down below. Tell me you like this. Tell me you want to see more tips and tricks videos. I can release those as well. Thank you guys all for watching, and I will see you next time.